Hello and welcome to Ballyhoo, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, where we look at the Lord of the Rings films. We take Nick on the journey of his lifetime, and join him are Mark.
Hello.
And myself, and we've got Nick as well.
Hello.
The Lord of the Two Towers virgin, I believe. I never think you got this far.
I have never been this far before with a Lord of the Rings.
If you take another step, it'll be the furthest from the Shire you've ever been.
Oh dear. And then every step after that will be the furthest.
That's how we should have watched the film. I mean, it's only like somewhere between 9 and 12 hours long.
Yeah. The extended ones, and this is 4 hours.
No, I mean that one version of the Fellowship where they cut that scene in there. Anyway.
Okay, so as we said, we are going through the Lord of the Rings films because it's the 20th anniversary of the Fellowship of the Ring that came out in 2001. The Two Towers came out a year later in 2002, and on a budget of only, would you believe, 94 million. Imagine that, 94 million. Alright, it made 947 million. Mm-hmm. Alright, almost $1 billion. Made more than Fellowship. Alright, so there was an increase in popularity. Due to the popularity of the Fellowship, Peter Jackson was allowed to do reshoots, was given more money, and went off and released what we should maybe discover one of the greatest sequels ever? Or is it a bit flabby? Too lean? Did it have problems? Right. Nick, as we know, you've only just seen it.
I have.
This week.
I literally finished it about an hour ago.
Oh, it's good, fresh in your mind. Mark?
Yes.
Tell me about your little bit of a history with this film.
I saw it the moment it came out at the cinema. I think I saw it 3 times at the cinema. And then I bought the DVDs when they came out. And then I bought the extended edition DVDs when they came out. And then I bought the cinematic versions of the film when they came out on Blu-ray. And then the extended editions when they came out on Blu-ray. I haven't gone for the 4K prints. I don't know if those are they put out 4K prints yet? I don't know.
They are, yeah.
Okay.
They are. I haven't plumped for those yet. But
did you buy the stereoscopic 3D versions?
No.
Which I'm sure they released at some point.
No, because
they probably did.
I never had a 3D television. I hate 3D films. I think 3D's are fad.
It was only The Hobbit that did it. But like you, Mark, I saw it twice at the cinema, day of release. Had the theatrical Blu-rays. I think I got the DVDs as well. Went to the extended DVD and Blu-ray. I managed to get a special edition extended one with Gollum, statue of Gollum.
Nice.
And then I've gone to the Blu-ray versions of the extended, and I'm probably going to invest in the 4K special set that's released this year, with all 6 films.
6?
It's part of a special set. 6. Well, The Hobbit included.
Oh, The Hobbits is what I see, yeah. Funnily enough, so the Mark, you went to cinema to see this 3 times, right?
Yeah.
I went to the cinema to see the first Hobbit film 3 times.
But why?
Ooh.
Trivia.
Or in 48 frames per second.
I saw once in 3D IMAX with the 48 frames per second.
Yeah.
I saw once 3D without the high frame rate and once just the normal.
Okay. Well, that's a different film. Let's not discuss that now.
Yeah, another time. Right, so let's get into it. We're going to discuss little bits and bats of scenes and all that. We're not going to discuss all the plot. The plot is basically get the ring to Mordor, destroy the ring. And Two Towers is interesting in the sense of how it's written as a book. It's split into 2 books. First book is focused on Aragorn, Merry Pippin, Gimli and Legolas and their journey through Rohan and the Rohirrim story, while the second book, the second half of the Two Towers, focuses on Sam and Frodo and their journey with Gollum on their way to Mordor. Interesting. I mean, it could never be done that way, but Peter Jackson entwined all 3 tales in this film. And it does have a definitive start and it does have a definitive ending despite the tale continuing. So, as all the Lord of the Rings films do, they start off with a little flashback, and this is probably the most recent flashback of all of them. I think it's quite a good one. It is mentioned in the book. Gandalf does speak about it, and it's the Balrog versus Gandalf scene from Fellowship, and they extend it, don't they?
It's a good way to open the film, really, to be honest. So the first film, I got the flashback with the original War for the Ring and everything, setting the scene for everything that's going to happen. The third film's got a good sort of flashback sequence at the beginning as well. We'll come on to when we talk about that film. But this was a solid one. And the way that it immediately just snaps into Frodo waking up from a bad dream.
Yeah. It does it, and the film starts off with Frodo and Sam. It takes a tale straight off from the Fellowship. They've left the Fellowship, they're walking, they're sort of lost a bit, and they're being stalked by Gollum, who they manage to capture, don't they?
Yeah.
This is our first proper look at Gollum.
Yeah, you'd only seen him Gollum? Obscured or off in the distance in the first film.
Yeah.
Like I was saying in the last episode, or the last film we talked about, it feels like they hadn't finalised the design of Gollum while they were making the first film, because the little bits of it you do get to see, like his eyes and everything, are very different to how they ended up being when they have proper Gollum in the second and third films. Yeah.
I mean, it's really well done. Andy Serkis was the actor behind Gollum.
This was it. This was the role, wasn't it, that established him as the motion capture guy, and now he not only does motion capture acting still to this day, but he owns and runs a company that does that, helps pioneer the technology for motion capture acting.
Yeah. I mean, he's a director now.
Yep.
As well. But yeah, this is his breakout role, really, isn't it? I mean, really, before this, you didn't really want to know the people behind animation as such, but he was so unbelievable in this, and he's been directed along with Frodo and Sam by Peter Jackson throughout. When you see the background into it, you can see him in his full motion capture suit and all that, and he's taking full part and all that.
Yeah.
What do you think about Gollum then, Nick?
I liked Gollum.
Yep.
Good character. Good bit of, I suppose, character development from Frodo. Obviously, when in the first film, in the mines, he said something along the lines of I wish you'd have died or something. And obviously, I think Frodo becomes quite attached to Gollum. Well, obviously, there's some scenes later on in the film, but we won't get ahead of ourselves. But I think it's almost a redemption story, I think, for Smeagol, because everything you've seen up until this point is he's not a nice person. Well, obviously, the ring kind of tainted him, and the idea that you get from the first film is that he's forever this sort of nasty shell of a person left now. Get on the level and start to feel quite sorry for him, and it's like you say, really good role played by Serkis, and very good.
Yeah, I think all three of them are in top form because straight away Sam doesn't trust him, does he? Straight away, and that's going to play out later on in the third film. But straight away, he doesn't trust him. But I mean, you can sense almost like the ring took Gollum so much he cannot abide anything elvish, whether it's bread or the rope. He just cannot abide.
Is that why he didn't like the bread? I see.
Yeah, because it's elvish bread.
I thought it can't taste that bad.
I guess it's like a combination of that and also the sort of like his capture and mistreatment by the elves, maybe?
The wood elves.
Or also the fact that he spent decades, if not hundreds of years, living in isolation, eating nothing but raw fish.
Yeah.
Tasty fish.
It's
tasty fish.
Yeah. I loves that. But yeah, there's a bit of, I think, something there within him that just goes anti-elf and just can't abide anything. Anyway, Gollum swears, follow the master, the ring, swears on the ring, and he swears to be a guide for them to Mordor. And then it switches, and this is where we follow Entwine the Stories. So it switches off basically, and this is wonderful. I love this scene because I don't know whether Farm is placed in New Zealand, but it doesn't look like the Fellowship. Rohan is totally different in terms of its landscape and everything. Feels very Wild West almost, a little bit greener but very plain. The Great Plains of America, where you can run these horses out wild, and Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas are just running. And the first part of the Two Towers for these three characters running, chasing after orcs, and that's what they're doing. But I just think the scenery is just truly epic in this film.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about it a little bit in the last one. They couldn't have found a better backdrop to put this film against than the beauty of New Zealand.
In New Zealand, they couldn't find a better advert.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah.
We come along to one of the famous scenes from a video. The hobbits are going to Isengard. I mean, Legolas must see that those elven eyes must see for miles and miles.
Yep.
And
like the Who.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, just like the Who.
Now, in the extended version, you get a scene with what they call the Dunlendings. They're a group of men who swear to Saruman, and they perform attacks on Rohan. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's in the normal theatrical version. But basically they were...
the Wild Men?
Tribe. The Wild Men.
I can't
they're
remember.
called Dunlendings, haven't they? Yeah. Dunlendings, I had to look it up. I did sort of remember. I used to play Middle-earth role-playing, and one of them, you could be a Dunlending, a Wild Man. But yeah, they swear to Saruman, and they're attacking Rohirrim villages all over the place. Killing, and this first hour we're introduced straight away to probably the main figures in the story of Rohan. Éomer, Éowyn, Theoden, and Grima Wormtongue. What do we think about these then? Start with the two brother and sister, Éomer and Éowyn.
Well, first of all, I want to make a little comment on Edoras. The design of it is, I'd say, must have been a very, very large influence. Do you remember in Skyrim, the first town that you come to? The first proper town that you come to, Whiterun?
Yeah.
And it's like on a sort of like rocky outcrop in the middle of, big open grassland plains ringed with mountains on all sides. And that's exactly what Edoras is. I just remember the first time I played Skyrim and I saw that town, I was like, all right, okay, I get what they're doing here. I think this was the first film I ever saw with Carl Urban in.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, didn't think he was very good. I think he's fantastic in other things. I don't know. He just seems a little bit. I don't know how to describe it. There's something just a little bit off about his performance. But
he hasn't got much to work with, though.
He doesn't have a huge amount to work with. No. There's some fun lines between him and the three hunters, especially with Gimli. Yeah, like I cut off your head, beard, and all if it stood but a little higher from the ground. That like are straight out of the book. But on the whole, he's kind of like a bit of a nothing character in this this film. He has a few little bits of dialogue, gets moody, gets sent away, but doesn't really do it, and then comes back, but doesn't really do a huge amount. Eowyn is a much more important character, and I can't remember the name of the actress who plays her. I don't think I've seen her in anything else.
Yeah, I saw her. She's been in 24.
Okay.
The last season of 20. Miranda Otto.
Is she a Kiwi, Australian?
She might be Australian.
Okay. I probably should have looked this up. Miranda Otto is Australian, yeah. Thought so.
Yeah.
A lot of Antipodean actresses and actors in this series, as I should expect. But yeah, I thought she was fantastic. Very important character, and she carried the role admirably. Brad Dourif as Grima Wormtongue is fantastic. I couldn't think of anyone who could play that role better. And he's not someone who usually plays particularly creepy characters. Like one of his other biggest roles is he plays like the Doctor in Deadwood, and he's not a creepy character at all. He's like probably one of the only wholesome people in that entire town. But he's so creepy in this as Grima Wormtongue. And I can't remember the actor's name who plays.
Bernard.
Yeah, whatever. Who plays King? King Theoden, yeah.
Bernard
Cribbins.
Bernard Hill.
It's not Bernard Cribbins.
Bernard Hill.
Bernard Hill, yeah.
He was in Gandhi.
Was he? Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic actor, and he plays that role very well.
Yeah, so I think in the book where you talk about Irma had more of a relationship with Aragorn. They're always talking about, meeting up and fighting together and being best buds and stuff.
Yeah,
and everything that don't really come through in the film as such. I don't think they've written it in that way.
No.
Eowyn, excellent. I thought she was truly brilliant, and they give her more of a central role than even the book does, because the book sort of like has her there, and there's a hint of romance between her and Aragorn.
Well, that's all it is. She kind of like in the books for most of for at least most of the second book, right up until partway through the third book, when she kind of snaps out of it and decides to do something. She just mopes around, feeling miserable because she can't have Aragorn, and that's it. Yeah. She does not pass the Bechdel test.
But she does have a stronger role in the film, which is good.
Out of the entire film of this is the storyline that I didn't get on with at first watch.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't. When sort of obviously the orcs were attacking the village, and then those two children escape on horseback, I was like, oh, two children. Sort of Claire just was sort of like came in and sat down, and she was like, oh, what's happened? And I said, the village is on fire, and two children have just escaped on horseback. I'm pretty sure they're going to be important at some point in the future. Yeah, I just didn't really get on with this plot line. But that might be. I don't know. I don't know if it's better when you know actually what's kind of coming on and you know all the lore and history behind it. But I don't think they did a great deal of good setting that up in the film. Personally,
no, I'd agree.
I agree with that. Rohan is not really set up.
It's not fleshed out particularly well.
No. Basically, they're just horse lords.
I'll tell you why. And even though this film has a 4-hour runtime, the reason why, and I said this, or might as well get into it now. This film is my favourite of the trilogy. It's very close to the Fellowship of the Ring is a very close second to Two Towers, but this is my favourite of the trilogy. But it is also the one where you start to see Peter Jackson indulging himself, shall we say. And so we get a battle that takes over the entire third act of a film. And his lack of restraint going forward became a bit of a problem. I mean, I'd like the battle sequence, we'll talk about when we come onto it, but the fact that it's so long meant that other aspects of the story that are more fleshed out in the books and more fleshed out in the radio play were not given the time that they needed in the film quite as much as I would like. I still love it. It's still my favourite of the trilogy. But yeah, I agree. They could have spent some more time developing or making the characters making the viewer, care about some of these characters. I mean, you do, because these characters, all of them persist into the next film, so your relationship grows with them as you go on. But in terms of this film, it's like what you don't really get much of a feeling of like why Rohan and why the Rohirrim are so important and why the anyone should care.
Yeah, you don't, because it seems like it's almost like incidental that Gimli, Aragorn and Legolas fall into this story. That Rohan's experiencing problems and they're just chasing after Merry and Pippin and they just incidentally just trips into the story. And Rohan's got his problems, but when it comes clear why Rohan is important, it's more clear. It is explained better in the book that Rohan is an ancient ally of Gondor, and to get rid of Gondor, you have to knock out the allies of Gondor, and one of them being Rohan, or the main one. And it's like the Two Towers refer to Isengard and Barad-dûr, and that's where we get the Two Towers for. And this one's just focused on Isengard and the Tower of Orthanc. And but yeah, it's not really fleshed out why Rohan is so important.
Is it Isengard and Barad-dûr?
Yeah, I think it is.
I thought it was Minas Tirith and Minas Ithil.
But they're not really. Even in the book.
Well, they go to Minas Ithil, don't they? That's where they are not. I guess it doesn't happen until the next film. Yeah, but they go to Minas Ithil. But I'm sure that happens in the second book. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I was under the impression that the Two Towers referred to Minas Tirith and Minas Ithil. But
maybe I was for, and I don't know if I read it somewhere, by it's Orthanc or Isengard.
In terms of the film, that makes sense, because it's about Frodo and Sam making their way towards Mordor, and everyone else having to deal with Isengard.
Yeah. That's I can't remember. I don't know if somebody mentioned it, or if it's lore or something. I'd have to look it up. And
either way, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I still think it's kind of... I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere, and I should have looked this up because I mentioned it last time as well, that there was some pushback into calling the film The Two Towers because this film came out just over a year after September the 11th.
Yeah, I do seem to remember saying that. Yeah. It wasn't... I couldn't understand it, but I do remember at the time there was some sort of discussion based about it, but
they were the Twin Towers, weren't they?
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
I know, yeah.
You know how sensitive Americans can get.
That's it.
Yeah. Even in the theatrical version, this stuff's kind of... This whole aspect of the story is a little bit rushed. Even though it takes up the vast majority of the film, the Sam and Frodo stuff is kind of a sideshow. Makes up a very small portion of the film. But the whole... Hey... Theoden, Saruman's made a big army and it's on its way, and he's like, I will not like risk more bloodshed with open war. And it's like, Saruman's made a big army and it's on its way. I don't know how much clearer we can make this. He's like, I tell you what, what we'll do is we'll abandon our home and we'll go and hole up in a castle and a cliff face. And it's like, well, why? Like, I never understood. It's like the ancient fortress of Helm's Deep, and it's like, why isn't that your capital instead of this, admittedly very picturesque town?
Well,
on a rock in the middle of an open field.
I just thought that Helm's Deep it's not a long-term thing. But I can't remember what the whole history of Helm's Deep was. But
they built this giant fortress and this huge wall into the side of a mountain, and then lived somewhere else.
Yeah, but I think because they were basically their horse lords.
Yeah.
That they want the open space to roam around.
I get it.
Edoras is the capital, but Helm's Deep is a place where if they are under attack. They will retreat to.
I get it, yeah.
But,
it's a bit like a Motte Bailey castle.
Yeah, but miles away because it's further north.
Just very spread out.
Yeah. Well, Rohan's big and want to get the horses going. So going back to the story a little bit. We're then introduced to the third strand with Merry and Pippin, who were captured by orcs. Basically, they get into the forest of Fanghorn after a battle where the Rohirrim killed a bunch of orcs, and they meet Treebeard.
Yay!
And when they enter Fanghorn Forest, and
right after I do quite like. We don't need to really get into it much, but I do really enjoy the scene between the the big burly Uruk-hai and the slightly more twisted, misshapen orcs. The arguments between the two of them, and then one of them's like whether they should eat the hobbits or like just eat their legs, and then he kills him, and then there's the immortal looks like meat's back on the menu, boys. That whole sequence is really good. I don't remember that being in the books at all.
We're not going no further till we've had a breather. Get a fire going.
Mary. I think we might have made a mistake leaving the Shire, Pippin. What's making that noise? It's the trees. What? You remember the old forest on the borders of Buckland? Folk used to say there was something in the water that made the trees grow tall and come alive. Alive. Trees that could whisper, talk to each other, even move.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we
have some meat? What about them? They're fresh.
They are not for eating.
What about their legs? They don't eat those. Ooh, they look tasty.
Get back, scum! The prisoners go to Saruman, alive and unspoiled.
Alive? Why alive? Do they give good sport?
They have something, an elvish weapon. The master wants it for the wall.
I think we have the ring. Shh! As soon as they find out we don't, we're dead.
Just a mouthful. A bit off the flank.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
It is in the books. It's more, there was an orc called Grishnak, and I don't know if one of the orcs is called Grishnak. Now in the book, and I think, and it comes through. It obviously the fault of the film. It's not really clear. In the books, the Saruman's Uruk-hai meet Mordor's orcs, because Mordor's orcs don't really travel under the sun.
No.
And they both have a massive conflict, and I think Grishnak is one of the ones his orcs have killed and taken over because the Uruk-hai are fast and can run underneath the sun. But that's where that conflict comes from, where basically the hobbits were either going to go to Isengard or they were going to go to Mordor, and they ended up going to Isengard because the Uruk-hai is stronger. But yeah, you're right, it didn't come. That was just one thing, maybe one or two lines, or the eye wants it. I mean, it could have been easily solved. You know, reference to the eye, you know what we're talking about in this film. So, yeah, Fangorn Forest. Treebeard basically kills the orc that comes after Merry and Pippin, who was wounded with a spear. Because he thinks they're orclings and starts squeezing them as well. Treebeard is voiced by Gimli, John Rhys Davies. So yeah, two roles in this film.
I like his performance in this, but I also kind of wish that someone else had done the voice of Treebeard, because it's really obviously the same person who plays Gimli.
Even I picked up on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine Brian Blessed doing Treebeard.
Yeah.
That was doing good.
Yeah.
Could have had that.
Gilbert
Gottfried.
Anyone?
Yeah. There was a lot of references around this time in the film of...
just a sidebar. Have you ever seen that clip of... it was like a College Humor sketch or something like that of Gilbert Gottfried recording the audiobook version of 50 Shades of Grey?
Yes, I have actually.
No.
It's pretty good.
Keep still, he orders, and slowly he inserts his thumb inside me, rotating it around and around, stroking the front wall of my vagina. No fisting, you say? Anything else you object to? I agree to the fisting, but I'd really like to claim your ass.
I was just going to say that a lot of references to the White Wizard, and we are all led to believe that this is Saruman wandering Fangorn Forest.
Yeah.
And even the hobbits are dropped in front of a White Wizard. I'm just going to mention one scene where I think what I really like, particularly the start of this, is where they show Aragorn's skills as a tracker. You know, as a ranger, as one of the hunters, he's able to decipher what actually went on with Merry and Pippin when three of them think they're dead. He discovers that they've actually went into Fangorn Forest, and he goes along with it. But one of the scenes is when he kicks an orc helmet, isn't it? And he lets it out this massive cry.
Yeah.
Well, that scene was kept in, and at that point when he let out a massive cry, he actually broke his big toe.
He did.
Kicking the helmet. So that's not just a acting cry, that's probably a big cry of pain. So they enter Fangorn Forest. They eventually meet a white being, and they are warned about it. They need to be attacking straight away. And I thought this is really well done. Really well done, I thought. Because if you don't know the book, if you haven't read the book, and you're unaware, you think the White Wizard is Saruman, but it doesn't. It turns out to be who's back from Resurrection.
Gandalf.
Yeah. And Peter Jackson did a good job. I think in the book it's a lot easier to disguise it. But when they put him in this white glare and they do Christopher Lee's voice, don't they?
Yeah, and it's like Christopher Lee's voice warping it into Ian McKellen's voice and back and forth, and the modulation's really interesting, and they do some cool stuff with the sound design and the fact that it's completely backlit, so all you can see is just white robes and white hair, and you think, if you don't know, you're like, oh shit, it's Saruman. But it's a good scene. It's well done. Touching reunion between Gandalf and those characters, but not for long because they've got more pressing matters to deal with, I guess.
I know.
Oh, don't worry about Merry and Pippin. They're hanging out with my friend, the walking fucking tree.
And they're going to cause a massive ruckus.
Yeah.
They'll have like a stone, was it rolling down the hill turning into an avalanche or something?
Yeah. The stone in the mountains that causes an avalanche, or whatever the line is.
That metaphor or whatever it was. It's quite good in that sense, but very spiritual. I find this film very spiritual in the sense of you do get a lot of mysticism. Gandalf coming back, he was sent back. He killed the Balrog. His job isn't finished.
Do you know what? Despite how engrossed in the Tolkien mythology I've been, and everything to do with Middle Earth, and I've read a fair amount about the life of J.R.R. Tolkien, I don't really know anything about his views on religion. He was good friends with C.S. Lewis, who was definitely some form of Christian, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, he was.
I think they were both a bit.
Yeah, I think it was probably unusual if you weren't at that time.
Oh yeah, definitely. But C.S. Lewis was proper into it, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, full on.
But I think
Tolkien.
Once again, though, this is kind of another, for me anyway, with Gandalf sort of being resurrected, was like just once again gave the similarity between that and Aslan in Lion, Witch and Wardrobe, which I think it probably is just plays into the whole spirituality and religion kind of angle that everyone was probably writing at that point. However, it's interesting. It's interesting to note that the two best friends have very similar storylines.
I mean, it's a pretty common theme in ancient mythology as well.
Yeah, but
characters dying and coming back to life. Yeah,
but going along with the bit that I mentioned the other episode about with the Father Christmas and the elf woman.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, reading about it, he was a Roman Catholic.
Okay.
His mother converted to be a Roman Catholic, and then raised him in it. So he remained a devout Catholic throughout his life. And also, he was one of those. So it was him, C.S. Lewis, and another writer or two more that spent a lot of time together in Oxford, didn't they? They went to a pub. There's a pub you can go in Oxford where they spent a hell of a lot of time discussing things. So it's not surprising that they did have a lot of similarities, and Gandalf comes back as in resurrection. The job's not finished. He sort of forgets who he is as well, and realizes, yes, I was Gandalf the Grey. Now I am Gandalf the White. That type of thing. So he's almost become more powerful. He's overtaken Saruman as the head of the Order. So, yeah, it's good. One thing I did like him, There was a bit of better background in the books. So Shadowfax, it sort of just comes up, doesn't it? Like Shadowfax is the lord of all horses, and the best horse.
He's he just has this horse in the film, and it's like, well, did he always have that horse? Where did the horse come from? How come he didn't have that horse? Or if he did have that horse in the first film, he doesn't mention that his horse is something special, some special horse. But he doesn't. In the first book, he has just a regular old horse, I guess. And then it's later. It's like, is it once he frees? Doesn't he? All right, hang on. So I'm getting a bit confused here. Does he go to Edoras before finding the other three in Fangorn and help free?
I'm not
because he does something and is offered a favor, and his favor he asks for their swiftest horse from the Rohirrim. And the Rohirrim give him Shadowfax.
No, I think what it was. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I don't think he goes before his resurrection. I sort of get the feeling that he went when on his way down to Isengard. I'm not Isengard.
Oh no! Hang on. No, he gets Shadowfax later in the book.
Right. I'm not sure. It's just that basically, I think Grima was there already, working his way on Theoden, and Theoden, in a fit of anger, just said, "Take any horse." So he takes Shadowfax. He doesn't give him his swiftest horse because he's refused at first, and he keeps asking, and just basically says, "I'll just take a horse," and he takes Shadowfax.
Yeah,
and they're all a bit annoyed at him.
Oh yeah, no. Theoden says, "Take any horse and be gone," and then he takes Shadowfax and goes. That's it. Yeah, all right, I remember now.
Yeah, but that's not explained because there's a bit of background with Theoden, Gandalf, and Grima, where they've met before, and there's a bit of this antagonism between the two, but that doesn't really come out through this. But I think it's quite good. Like I say, Edoras is a wonderful place and very scenic and very. Peter Jackson's just staying it, and when it sweeps around Miranda Otto's, it's just that place where they filmed it. They had to get to it by helicopter, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they built Edoras in that place, and the only way to get to it was via helicopter. So, but there's nothing for miles and miles. And it's when they come up and and Grima says, make sure he doesn't bring his staff in, and would he take a staff off an old man? There's that sort of hint that makes the warrior uncomfortable, and they let him in. And once again, I like the use of magic.
Subtle.
Magic isn't very subtle, not flashy. He at first he tries to get rid of Saruman by using his words, but then he realises he has to put more power into it. And it's good how it cuts when he hits him. Sort of, he's actually hitting Saruman, not Theoden.
Yeah, it's good. The sort of the Saruman speaking through Theoden when he says, like, if I go, Theoden dies and everything. It's with Saruman's voice. That was kind of cool. And when he finally takes him out, and the fading from the old man makeup to the regular Theoden face was very well done. Cool scene. What follows afterwards is just it's a bit. Again, it's a bit truncated, isn't it? It's like, oh, Theoden, you've been in mind control for a while. Your son's dead. Your other son's gone off, and he's taken most of your army with him.
His nephew.
His nephew. Has gone off and taken most of the army with you because you sent him away. Saruman's sending a whole army here. What do you want to do? and it's just like, okay, I'm going to bury my son, and then we're going to piss off and hide in a castle behind a big wall.
Yeah. That's it. And Gandalf goes, I'm off to find Ymir, and look for me on the 5th day of the morning's light or something. There's a bit of a cryptic prophecy there. So that's essentially where I just stopped there with that sort of thread at that time, because they're all going to go to Helm's Deep. I will mention though, but on the way to Helm's Deep, there is a battle that's introduced that's not in the book.
No. The Warg Riders.
That is the Warg Riders. Once again, I liked it. There was an absence of sound again when they both hit. And I noted it. I was interested to see, because for Two Towers, on the extended version, it's about 2 hours before that battle happens with the Warg Riders.
Yeah.
And essentially, you've had no battle apart from a little small skirmish, what you sort of get a little hint with the Orcs and the Rohirrim.
And yet
apart from
still,
that,
the Rohirrim feel a little bit underdeveloped, even though you've spent the large portion of the last 2 hours with them. They still feel a little bit underdeveloped.
Yeah. The book has more characters, you see. The book has there's another important Rohirrim warrior who has more troops. And Gandalf's gone to get him as well, and Éomer, and bring them all together.
There's a lot more, obviously, we could just repeat ad infinitum. There's a lot more in the books. But I like that scene that was added. The whole bit with Aragorn being thrown off the cliff edge and then coming back later was seemed just like an excuse for him to have another weird dream sequence with Arwen. Liv Tyler hasn't done anything in this film yet. Let's put a scene with her in. But on the whole, I quite like that scene. It was another little bit of like, there are two very different types of humour in these films. There's the humour that's in the books, and then there's the humour that Peter Jackson put in. The humour in the book still works. Most of the humour that Peter Jackson inserts works. Some of it feels a little bit forced, right? And there's one of those moments in that scene when Gimli's about to hit one of the wargs with his axe, and Legolas shoots it, and he's like, "Oh, that counts as mine," and it's like, it's fine. They kind of run that joke into the ground a bit towards the end of the film.
But that's in the book, isn't it? The counting,
not in the way that it's presented in the film. I don't know. I always thought that their relationship was a lot more believable in the book than it was in the film.
It's developed more in this, because when we first meet with Rohirrim, Legolas is straight away quick to defend him.
Yes.
And I think the sort of hint is that Lothlorien's changed them both, because Gimli's mellowed his way towards elves, and Legolas has sort of like had his rough edges shorn off him about
pulled the stick out of his butt.
Yeah, so there's a bit of that. But the thing with the Rohirrim, I did get the feeling, especially when there's that scene where Aragorn's going back to Helm's Deep on the horse, it's all Peter Jackson's Western movie, Wild West.
Yeah.
It is sort of filmed as a Wild West film.
Yeah.
In a bit of like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, the 60s Clint Eastwood films. In that type of feel towards it, and especially with Aragorn going back. And I liked it. I did like it. But I think we'll stop there with that thread, and Helm's Deep is the truly, truly, truly epic thing about it. One thing I will say about the timing. The timing does feel a bit weird, because Aragorn meets the Orcs, then runs to Helm's Deep. It's like, how far do these Orcs absolutely march? When you look at the map between Isengard and Helm's Deep, it's quite far. But these Orcs have been marching in rank file for a long time. But that's a side issue. Shall we go with Frodo? Frodo, Sam? Follow that thread of
might as well spank through that, because there's not a huge amount there, to be honest. No. Frodo, as they're making their way, Frodo says to, like, Gollum's been there, and he's like, take us to the gate, and Gollum's like, okay, I'll take you to the gate. As they go along, Sam is incredibly suspicious of Gollum, quite rightly. Frodo feels very sorry for him because I guess he sees what could happen to him if he lets the ring's influence take hold of him. And they just travel their way across some incredibly nasty environments. There's
Dead marshes.
The dead marshes, which was the battlefield of the prologue section in the first film.
Yeah.
It's that battlefield, and it's all the dead there. Their bodies and their spirits sort of live, survive in the marshes. That bit always creeped me out in the old radio play, the way that it's presented there. They see some... and then they finally get to the gate, and what are they? I can't remember what
Easterlings.
Easterlings, the Easterlings. It's not something I think we should really get into in this discussion, but there's some of the descriptions, shall we say, of the peoples who are quite happy to join in with the Dark Lord in the books are problematic by modern day standards. They're all analogous for ethnic minorities, basically, particularly people from the Far East and people from the Middle East. It's a bit of a shame, but it was a different time. And then they finally get to the gate, and they're about to go through the gate, and then Gollum's like, "Why would you go through the gate?" And they were like, "Because that's the way into Mordor." He's like, "No, it's not the best way into Mordor." And they're like, "Why did you take us here?" And he's like, "Because you asked me to." Essentially, they're like, "I know a better way, a way that won't get you killed." P.S. Inside his head, it'll totally get them killed. But it'll get them killed in a way where I get to keep the ring. And then they decide to go. So he's taking them towards Cirith Ungol, right? That's the way in. They pass through the mountains.
I just want to mention two scenes, because the Dead Marshes, isn't that's where Gollum has his famous two-sided schizophrenic talk with himself, Gollum and Smeagol, and actually Smeagol gains the courage. I think it's a brilliant scene, and Smeagol gains the courage to basically tell Gollum to go away, because Gollum's a persona that's protected Smeagol as such. And that's really well done. Andy Serkis is brilliant in that scene, just getting the two characters within Smeagol's mind and showing it how it appears. I mean, that's really good. And the other one was where the Black Rider comes in through the marsh, and
on the Fell Beast.
Yeah, the Fell Beast. You introduced the Black Riders again after they're vanquished in the Ford of Rivendell. But that scene where they're hiding and it swoops round, that's a painting. That's taken from a painting done before the films were made. And I don't know if it's Alan Lee or another person.
There are a couple of... I mentioned this book last time. If you are at all interested, I don't know how difficult it is to get hold of these days. There's a fantastic book called The Tolkien Bestiary, and if you're interested in the world of Middle Earth, and a little more interested in some of the history and the different creatures and flora and fauna and civilizations that live there, it's a fantastic book. All of the entries are accompanied with the most beautiful artwork and very, very disparate styles by different artists. But a number of those artists did a lot of the concept art, matte paintings, costume designs, and things like that for the films. So there's a direct line between the films and the Tolkien Bestiary, which was written back in the 80s, I think.
Yeah, and I can't remember who did, but it's just nice to see
There's
that
David
Peter Jackson
David Day was like the main person who worked on that. Yeah. 1978, that book was originally put together, and there's like a direct line between some of the designs that you see in. It's a fantastic book, fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. If you like a good art book and you like Tolkien, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's just nice to see that he's taken his inspiration not from paintings as well, where he's saying, "Oh, I like that painting. I like the look of that. I'll film exactly how it's done in that painting." Because as it sweeps across them and they're hiding underneath the log or something, it's exactly like that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nick, so far about Frodo, Sam, Gollum? That little thread of story going through the film up to the Black Gate.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I say, I think that's, at the moment anyway, in the film where we're up to, that's kind of the main thread that kept me interested. Apart from the trees and Merry and Pippin, I am all for the light comic relief provided by Merry, Pippin and Gollum. Until it gets quite sad, obviously, like we just said, with the Gollum Smeagol sort of dual-sided conversation. That was pretty heavy, to be honest. I wasn't expecting anything like that. But very well handled and very well done.
It's the beginning of the Merry and Pippin going from being useless, bumbling, just comic relief into being, yes, still comic relief, but also having an important role to play in the story because it's them that convinces...
It is eventually, in another hour's time, but at the moment they are still just drinking water and trying to be taller than each other.
Yes, yeah.
I'm wishing they had some
special
pipe
water.
Weed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is special water that allows them to grow.
Yeah.
It's that sort of joke does continue throughout the film. But yeah, so we get to the Black Gate. Like I say, Gollum wants to go elsewhere, so they travel elsewhere. What live there with them? Should we go to not the trees, Nick? Because Marx keeps having fits of anger when you say trees.
Ents.
It's the Ents.
Those things.
Those things. Ents. So, Ents, they are basically they look after trees.
Yeah.
In Fangorn Forest. They're like the tree herders. They've been heard about by the hobbits because Buckland, up that distant thing that's mentioned in the books, alright, it's meant to have these type of trees, and Treebeard laments about women. You know, where all the female Ents. You know, does he do it in the film? So he certainly laments it in the book.
What's that, sorry?
Laments about the tree women. Not the tree women, the Ent women.
The Entwives. I think he does in the book. Again, it's been a little while since I've read them.
Does in the book. And he does it in the film as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does in the film. Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And they said they lost them.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to find them.
Yeah. No. Yeah, so that scene sort of plays out, and basically they go... you meet other Ents, and they have an Entmoot. An Entmoot, to Merry and Pippin's complete and utter bemusement, anger and chagrin, seems to take forever. It takes about 8 hours to say hello.
Yeah, and then they decide to not do anything.
Yeah.
They're very much like Keir Starmer's opposition, basically. Or the Liberal Democrats.
They also decided Merry and Pippin weren't orcs. That was very important.
Yes, it was a very important part of the meeting. Yeah.
But yeah, they can't believe it. And Merry and Pippin basically trick Treebeard to go south towards Isengard.
Their reasoning to him is like the closer to danger, the further away from harm you are. He's like, I guess that makes sense. So he takes him down there, and then sees that Saruman's been ripping up the forest and burning the forest and plugging damming the river and whatnot, and he's a very, very, very angry Ent.
Yeah, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of
No.
a very, very angry Ent. So he calls the Ents all to war, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah. So, where are we now? So we've got Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas all in Helm's Deep. We've got Merry and Pippin who've manoeuvred themselves and Treebeard into Isengard, and Frodo and Sam now are leaving the Black Gate, and I can't remember this. Are they going south or north?
Yes, Cirith Ungol is to the south of the Black Gate.
Yeah, so it's right at the corner, isn't it? It's another
Yeah, essentially.
corner type of. Yeah,
It's a path through the mountains.
so yeah. So they're walking down south, and one of the things that Sam's always wanted to see is an oliphant. Basically an elephant,
Yeah.
but much, much bigger. And the Easterlings, as they are, and all these other groups of managed tribes, are all going to supplement the Dark Lord's armies, and they see this elephant walking down, and they're attacked by the Men of Gondor. But before that happens, you get funny scenes about. It's very casual now, the relationship between Sam and Gollum and Frodo, in that sense of talk about chips, don't they?
Potatoes.
What's potatoes, and what's Sam going to do with the rabbits? And he's going to cook them, and why just have them raw and stuff?
Yeah.
And yeah, and this is when they see the oliphant.
Oh, that scene is straight out of the
book.
out of the book as well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the way that Faramir and his lot come upon Frodo and Sam is not the same in the book. They like Faramir's lot ambush the Easterlings and then come across Frodo and Sam, but they get captured in the book because of the campfire.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are. I mean, I suppose you could argue that the campfire was spotted because they didn't really try to hide the smoke, did they?
No,
So,
well, they didn't think
It could
anyone
be
else
that
was out there.
no. And that it was probably spotted before the attack happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see this oliphant, it's quite large. It's got weapons in between its tusks and it's curled. Sam's really happy to see it because I think in the book it's more important because he can tell his gaffer, his dad, that he's seen one. And what happens is they are captured by Faramir. Now, Faramir, we're going to get a number of flashbacks as with Faramir and all that. Faramir is the brother of Boromir, whose father is Denethor, steward of Gondor.
He's Boromir's runty younger brother.
He is, and he's treated like the runt, isn't
Yeah.
he? And I can't remember because it's been so long since I saw the theatrical, but I don't think the theatrical establishes the antagonism between Denethor and Faramir.
No, they don't have time to. They've got a 40-minute battle to
Yeah.
put a squeeze in the end of the film.
Yeah. But the extended one does.
Yeah, a bit.
Because-
Not enough,
No, not
but
enough.
but a bit.
So we get introduced to Faramir here, Captain of Gondor. Now, the throwback scene, the flashback scene, sorry, is where Osgiliath, originally the capital city of Gondor, is retaken from the enemy.
Yeah.
Because basically Gondor had three main cities, minus Tirith, minus Ithil, and Osgiliath. And Osgiliath was in between minus Tirith and minus Ithil. It's the capital that has a river running through it, and the orcs took it when Sauron came back, but with the help of Boromir single-handedly, it seems, according to Denethor. He took it back and beheld Osgiliath for a little while. And the extended does establish that sense of antagonism that Faramir offers to go to Elrond to go to the council, but he says Boromir instead, and it sort of becomes more apparent in the third film, and it helps establish that. So there's little things like that. I think this film does do well, sets up the third film in many ways. When we think about it, you talk about a 4-minute battle scene. There isn't much battle in this. We've had the Wargs after 2 hours. You had a little bit of battle at the start, and then we're going to get towards the end of it like a Return of the Jedi style epic 3-way battle as such. Mm-hmm.
In comparison to some of Peter Jackson's other films, it's positively restrained, but yeah.
We also get an interlude, don't we, with Galadriel? Yeah. Where she's talking about... she does like a little summary, because we have a little escape to Rivendell and Arwen's Tale. Now, I need to fully investigate this. Essentially, the elves are leaving Middle-earth to go to the Undying Lands somewhere. Because if they remain in Middle-earth, they will die for some, I don't know, apparent reason. And Arwen doesn't want to leave. You get a bit of flashback with Aragorn, the fact that Aragorn said, I won't be coming back, I'm not coming back for you and stuff, and she's a bit upset. And Elrond, who seems to have visions and precog, says there's nothing for, if you stay with Aragorn, there's nothing for you. All you're going to get is death. He's going to die, you'll be left alone, and that's it.
I mean, it's already been established that the Dunedain live quite a lot longer than the normal, because Aragorn is 87, something like that. Yeah, in the story, and it looks pretty good for his age, got to say.
Yeah,
but yeah, he will eventually die, and Arwen will still be immortal as an elf.
Yeah.
So that's why I guess that's one of the reasons why they go to the Undying Lands. I can't remember the full lore about the Undying Lands, but yeah, it's just sort of like, I don't know, putting a little bit more tension in the sort of kind of love triangle that's not really a love triangle, because Aragorn has only got eyes for Arwen, Arwen's only got eyes for Aragorn, and Eowyn's here like,
got eyes.
Look at me, pay attention to me.
Oh no,
love me.
I find it quite funny the scene where she says she can't cook, and Gimli takes one look at what's in the pot and goes, no.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that was in the I don't remember that being in the books. But again, like, her character is not particularly, like I said earlier, like, her character in the book